When we open a history book, we often see a map of the Mughal Empire at its peak. It's a vast, sweeping territory, an ocean of imperial color that seems to drown the entire Indian subcontinent. The story we are told is one of total dominion, of a mighty empire that for centuries held absolute power over all of India. This image is then replaced by another, the British Raj, another map painted in a single color, suggesting another era of complete subjugation. But history is never that simple. Maps lie. They are tools of propaganda, designed to project an image of absolute control. They hide the stories of defiance, the tales of kingdoms that refused to kneel. The truth is there were vast and powerful regions of the subcontinent that the mighty Mughals could never ever conquer. And even before them, great Indian empires existed that were conquerors in their own right, projecting power across the seas. Later, when a new global power arrived, the British, they too discovered that India was not a monolith to be easily broken. It would take them over 100 years of bloody warfare, strategic deception, and political manipulation to subdue the last of its great, independent kingdoms. Today, we go beyond the simplified maps to uncover the hidden truth. This is the story of the unconquered, the unbreakable, and the India they never wanted you to know about. Before we even speak of the Mughals or the British, we must first travel back in time to an era when an indigenous Indian power was the dominant force in the Indian Ocean. We must speak of the Cholas. The golden age of the Chola Empire from the 9th to the 13th century predates the Mughals by hundreds of years. This was not a kingdom of resistance. This was an empire of projection. From their heartland in the fertile Kaveri Delta in modern-day Tamil Nadu, the Cholas built a sophisticated, wealthy, and powerful empire. Under the leadership of titans like Rajaraja was and his son, the even more ambitious Rajendravas, the Cholas were not content with land-based rule. They built the first great blue water navy in Indian history. Their massive fleets of wooden dhows dominated the Indian Ocean, controlling the lucrative trade routes from the Arabian Sea to the Strait of Malacca. This was not a defensive navy. It was an expeditionary force. In the year 1025, Rajendra Chola launched one of the most audacious military campaigns in world history. He dispatched his fleet on a journey of thousands of miles across the Bay of Bengal to invade the mighty Shivaji Empire, which controlled the crucial sea lanes in modern-day Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. The Chola Navy methodically captured and sacked Shivaji's key ports, shattered its naval power, and forced its king to acknowledge Chola supremacy. This was an Indian empire projecting its power across Asia, 500 years before the first Mughal emperor was even born. The Cholas built magnificent granite temples like the Brihadiswarar in Thanjavur that have stood for over 1,000 years, outlasting every subsequent empire. Their story proves that India was never a passive land, waiting to be unified by outsiders. It was a land of its own great empires. Now, let's fast forward to the 16th century and the rise of the Mughals. Under the reign of the final great Mughal, Aurangzeb, the empire reached its maximum territorial extent. From his capital, he commanded armies that marched from Afghanistan in the west to Bengal in the east. His goal was absolute control, but in the farthest corners of the subcontinent, he met his match. Our first journey takes us to the northeast, to the lush, river-filled valleys of modern-day Assam. For nearly 600 years, this land was ruled by one of India's most successful dynasties, the Ahom Kingdom. The Ahoms were the Mughal Empire's unconquerable eastern frontier. The Mughals, greedy for the resources of the region, launched numerous invasions. 17 times they tried, and 17 times they were repelled. The Ahoms were masters of their terrain. They perfected guerrilla warfare in the dense forests and treacherous hills. But their greatest weapon was the mighty Brahmaputra River. They built a formidable navy of swift, agile boats and used the river as a defensive moat and a highway for lightning-fast attacks. The climax of this long struggle came in 1671 at the famous Battle of Sarayat. The Mughals, determined to crush the Ahoms once and for all, sent a massive, overwhelming force. The Ahom army was smaller, and at a critical moment, their morale began to crumble. Their great general Lachit Borphukan was gravely ill. Seeing his soldiers retreat, he famously roared from his sickbed, "If you want to flee, flee, but tell the king that Lachit Borphukan fought and died here." His courage rallied his troops. In a daring naval assault, the smaller Ahom fleet outmaneuvered and utterly decimated the larger Mughal navy on the waters of the Brahmaputra. It was a humiliating defeat for the Mughal Empire. They never again gained a permanent foothold in the Ahom heartland. The northeast remained unconquered. Now let us travel to the other end of the subcontinent, the far south. While Mughal armies under Aurangzeb did campaign deep into the Deccan Plateau, their power waned with every mile they marched from Delhi. They never established direct, lasting administrative control over the extreme southern tip of India. Powerful and wealthy regional kingdoms, such as the Nayaka dynasties of Madurai and Thanjavur, and the kingdoms of Kerala like Travancore and Calicut, fiercely guarded their sovereignty. The sheer distance, combined with the difficult terrain of the Western Ghats and the strong local military traditions, made a complete conquest unfeasible. The south remained a bastion of independent Dravidian culture and power. But the greatest challenge to Mughal authority, the one that would ultimately shatter their empire, rose from the rugged hills of the Western Ghats. This was the rise of the Marathas. Their story is not just one of resistance. It is the story of a rebellion that grew into a full-fledged empire. This movement was ignited by one of the most revered figures in Indian history, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. A brilliant military strategist and a master of guerrilla warfare, Shivaji carved an independent kingdom right out of Mughal territory. He built a network of formidable hill forts, established a powerful navy to control the coastline, and inspired a sense of identity and pride among the Maratha people. After Shivaji's death, the Emperor Aurangzeb descended upon the Deccan with the full might of the Mughal army, determined to extinguish the Maratha rebellion forever. He spent the last 25 years of his life and his empire's vast treasury in a devastating, drawn-out war, but he could not win. The Marathas, using lightning-fast cavalry raids and scorched-earth tactics, bled the Mughal army dry. It was a war of attrition that the Mughals could not sustain. After Aurangzeb died in 1707, the Mughal Empire began to collapse. The Marathas seized the opportunity. In the decades that followed, they expanded rapidly, their armies marching across central and northern India, reaching as far as Delhi itself. The Mughal emperors were reduced to mere puppets, ruling only their palace while the Marathas controlled the continent. The fall of the Mughals created a power vacuum, and a new player, arriving by sea, was ready to fill it. The British East India Company was about to begin its slow, methodical conquest, but they too would soon learn that India was not a land to be easily broken. The British faced their most formidable challenge from the very power that had broken the Mughals, the Maratha Empire. It took the British 3 major bloody wars, fought over a period of more than 40 years, to finally subdue them. The Anglo-Maratha Wars were not a one-sided affair. The Maratha Confederacy, with its massive experienced army and brilliant commanders, pushed the British to their absolute limit. The final defeat of the Marathas in 1818 was the moment that truly cemented British control over most of India. In the south, another power mounted a fierce resistance. This was the Kingdom of Mysore, under the visionary leadership of Hyder Ali and his brilliant son, Tipu Sultan. Known as the Tiger of Mysore, Tipu was a relentless innovator and a sworn enemy of the British. He built a modern, disciplined army and pioneered the use of Mysorean rockets, an early form of artillery that terrified the British forces, and was later studied and reverse-engineered by them. It took 4 separate Anglo-Mysore wars before the British, through an alliance with other regional powers, were finally able to defeat him. Tipu Sultan died as he had lived, fighting on the walls of his capital city, Srirangapatna, in 1799. Even then, the conquest was not complete. The final great independent power to fall was the mighty Sikh Empire in the Punjab. Forged by the great Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the Lion of the Punjab, this was a modern, powerful, and tolerant state. Its army, the Khalsa, was a formidable fighting force trained by former European generals from Napoleon's army. As long as Ranjit Singh was alive, the British did not dare make a move against him, treating him as a respected equal. It was only after his death in 1839 that internal divisions weakened the empire. The British seized their chance, provoking the bloody Anglo-Sikh Wars. The Sikh soldiers fought with legendary courage, but they were ultimately defeated. And the Punjab was finally annexed in 1849. So when we look at the map of India, Let us remember the stories that the broad strokes of color hide. Let us remember the Cholas, who ruled the seas. Let us remember the Ahoms, who for 600 years were never conquered. Let us remember the kingdoms of the south that maintained their ancient identities. Let us remember the Marathas, who broke one empire and fought the next to a standstill for decades. Let us remember the Tiger of Mysore and the Lions of the Punjab. The history of the Indian subcontinent is not a simple story of submission. It is a powerful saga of defiance, of resilience, and of an unbreakable spirit that has endured through the centuries. If you believe that truth need to be told, subscribe to History and Beyond and join us as we continue to challenge the official narrative.